On a Tuesday at 13:12, you buy a sandwich and a coffee, $8.40. That sandwich costs you $113.40. Not because anything unusual happens, not because you're careless with money, or because you spend the rest of the week doing anything differently. You buy a sandwich, the card works, nobody stops you, and 5 days later, you are $105 poorer than you should be. This is the real cost of going $20 overdrawn, and I'm going to follow every single cent of it. Here's the account. At 13:12 on that Tuesday, you have $12.11 in it. Payday is Sunday. You know it's tight. You're not confused about your own finances, and the plan, such as it is to not spend anything until then. But it's Tuesday and you've been at work since 8, and you buy a sandwich and a coffee, and it's $8.40, and you tap the card, and the card works. That is the first thing worth stopping on, because it's where the whole thing turns. There is a version of this where the card is declined, you feel briefly embarrassed, you go back to the office and eat something from the drawer, and the day costs you nothing. Instead, the payment goes through. Your bank covers it. Nobody asks you. There is no screen at the till that says, "This will cost you $35. Are you sure?" The transaction is simply approved in about a second, and you walk out with a sandwich. Your balance is now $3.71. Wednesday, 4 o'clock. Your bank processes the previous day's transactions and applies the fee. $35. Balance, minus $31.29. And here is where it stops being a single mistake and starts being a machine, because you are now overdrawn, and you have not yet been told about it. Wednesday, 6:15. Your streaming subscription renews, $14.99. It's been on the same date every month for 2 years. It's not a decision. You set it up in a completely different financial situation, and it simply happens. The bank covers it. $35. Balance, minus $81.28. Thursday, your phone bill, $42 on a direct debit on the same date it has been for 4 years. The bank covers it. $35. Balance, minus $158.28. That's 3 fees, $105 in about 36 hours. And the total amount you have actually spent on things you didn't plan for is $8.40. You find out on Thursday evening when you check the app for an unrelated reason. Now, let's do the arithmetic that nobody at any point in this process shows you. Take just the first one. You needed $20. Specifically, you were about $20 short of covering an $8.40 purchase and the 2 automatic payments behind it. The bank lent you that money. On Sunday, payday, you paid it back. So, you borrowed roughly $20 for 5 days, and it cost you $35. $35 on 20 is a charge of 175% for 5 days. There are 73 5-day periods in a year. 175%, 73 times over, is an annualized rate of just under 13,000%. And I want to be careful because a 5-day loan isn't really meant to be annualized, and nobody keeps an overdraft running for a year. But that's exactly the point of doing it. The reason we express borrowing costs as an APR is so that different products can be compared honestly, and the moment you put an overdraft on that scale, it becomes obvious why it is never described that way. A credit card at 22% looks predatory until you sit it next to this. Now, the second thing, which is the part most people never learn, the order the transactions are processed in. Historically, a lot of banks process the day's transactions largest first, rather than in the order they actually happened. If you had $100 and made a $90 payment plus 4 small ones, processing the big one first meant the 4 small ones each bounced, 4 fees instead of 1. Same transactions, same day, same money, 4 times the charges. That practice has been heavily restricted in a lot of places after regulators and lawsuits went after it, and many banks have changed it. But the general principle still holds. The sequence in which your bank decides to process things is not something you control. It is not always the sequence you experienced, and it can be the difference between 1 fee and 3. If you have ever looked at a fee cascade and thought, "That doesn't seem like the order I did those in," you were probably right. And the third thing, which is the actual answer to why this exists at all, you have probably assumed that overdraft coverage is a safety net your bank provides because it would be awkward for everyone if your card declined. It's a product. It has margins. For a long time, it was one of the most profitable lines in consumer banking. Billions of dollars a year, in the US alone, drawn overwhelmingly from a small minority of account holders who go overdrawn repeatedly. Which is to say from the people with the least money. That's not a conspiracy, and I'm not going to pretend it is. It's disclosed, it's legal, and the fee is in the terms. But it does explain a design detail that would otherwise be baffling. Why the card doesn't just decline. Declining is free, instant, and technically trivial. Your bank could do it. Covering the payment and charging you $35 is a choice, and it is a choice that generates revenue, and declining does not. So, how do you actually stop this happening? And there are 5 things, in order of how much they'll do for you. First, and this is the big one, check whether you have opted in to overdraft coverage on debit card purchases. Because in a lot of places it is opt-in, and a great many people opted in years ago at account opening without registering what they were agreeing to. If you opt out, a purchase that would take you under simply declines. It's free. It's mildly embarrassing at a till, roughly once a year, and it makes this entire video impossible. Do that today. Second, link a savings account for overdraft transfer. If you go under, the bank moves money across from your own savings instead of lending it to you. Most charge either nothing or a few dollars for this, against $35 for the alternative. It takes about 5 minutes to set up, and it's the single highest value 5 minutes in retail banking. Third, set a low balance alert, not a zero alert, a low one, at whatever number gives you a day's warning. Most of this story happens in the gap between being overdrawn and knowing you're overdrawn, and that gap is where the second and third fees live. Fourth, know your bank specifics because they vary enormously, and several have quietly improved. Many now have a buffer, often around $50, below which they don't charge at all. Many have a grace period where, if you get the balance positive by the end of the next business day, the fee is reversed. And most have a cutoff time, after which transactions land on the following day. 15 minutes on your bank's website is genuinely worth $100. And fifth, the one almost nobody uses, ask for it back. Call, be polite, say it's the first time, and you fix the underlying problem. Fee refunds are extremely common. It costs the bank almost nothing. They'd rather keep the account, and frontline staff are usually authorized to do it. It won't work every time, and it won't work repeatedly. But on a first occurrence, the success rate is high enough that not asking is leaving money on the table. That single phone call is worth more per minute than almost anything else you'll do this month. So, that's the real cost of a sandwich. $8.40 at the till, $105 in fees, $113.40 in total for a lunch on a Tuesday, on an account you knew was tight and were being careful with. And the thing worth taking from it isn't that you should have skipped the sandwich. It's that the only genuinely expensive decision in this entire story was made years earlier in about 4 seconds by ticking a box on a form you didn't read, and that the same 4 seconds spent the other way would have turned a $113 lunch into a declined card and a slightly dull afternoon.